AOC is under attack, both sort of like physically, at least one of her offices, as well as, I guess, intellectually or sort of like on social media. Are you asking why? Well, apparently she is funding genocide. What has happened specifically is there is this bill going on through Congress right now, and it wasn't even specifically voting for the bill itself. It was specifically an amendment to the bill, which was proposed by Marjorie Taylor Greene, probably one of the well, it's hard to pick who is the most anti-Semitic representative right now, but definitely on the much worse side. And that proposal, that amendment, was supposed to take out the money from the bill that was supposed to fund the Iron Dome in Israel. This amendment, of course, didn't pass. It was shut down with 422 votes against 6. But one of the people who voted against this amendment was AOC, and people are coming after her for it. We'll talk about this in great detail on today's episode of the reality show that is sponsored by the Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy. More about them later in the video, but you can find the link in the chat and in the description. Joining me today are James Valiant and Stuart Margolis. Thank you guys for joining me today. And Stuart, I'll go to you for some of your opening thoughts, as well as specifically, I think we can cover the sort of the intellectual basis a bit later, and in the first part, just focus on the fact that one of her offices in Bronx was attacked. There was a sign saying AOC funds genocide in Gaza, and red paint basically completely like vandalized. What do you make of, yeah, what do you make of just this and any other opening thoughts?
Um, well, before you started recording, James made a comment that he didn't think he'd live to see the day when he had anything remotely positive to say about AOC. Yeah, I mean, I think it's surprising that she's not with the other. I think what is the 4-5 crazies, but I don't think we can make too much of that. I think, I'm not sure what her reasons were. I think they were largely pragmatic. I don't think it signals that she has any more understanding of this situation than she did before. I do think it's interesting that, obviously I don't support vandalizing her offices or anything, but I think her far left supporters are correct that she is being hypocritical here. She is being inconsistent. In this case, the inconsistency is good because the consistent position of those on the far left is horrific. So inconsistency in that sense is actually a positive. But from their perspective, yeah, she is being inconsistent.
James, any opening thoughts from you?
I think I have to agree with Stuart. I think it's for, she's a representative from New York City. She represents part of Queens and the Bronx. And I can only think that it was her own political tail she was looking after, because normally she would join Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and the others in the squad. I think that in this case, again, I'll just echo what Stuart said. When you've got an evil ideology, it's a good thing the extent to which you're a hypocrite and you contradict yourself. But look at the crazies who went after her. And what we were talking about here is the amendment that would eliminate helping Israel with its Iron Dome defenses. So these people who scream that Israel is doing a genocide, what they want is the savage nations, Islamic nations around them, to be able to engage in a genocide against the Israeli population. Well, I mean, Iran threw hundreds upon hundreds of missiles at Israel. How many civilians? Some got through and killed civilians. And can you imagine if there was no defensive shield? What they are calling for is, I mean, what does Iran stand for? What does Hamas stand for? What does Hezbollah stand for? They actually explicitly say they want to wipe out all the Jews and destroy Israel. Those are the people who actually want a real life genocide. And thank God they're savages and they can only do as much as they've been able to do. But look at all the missiles and rockets that they lob against Israel. Were it not for Israelis' the Iron Dome and the defensive systems Israel has, that would be a genocide. That would be exactly what they are accusing Israel of doing. Even as Netanyahu is trying to get food supplies for some reason into Gaza, they accuse him of genocide. There's that old saying, I forget the Israeli leader who said it, but it is so, and it's been echoed ever since. If, the enemies of Israel laid down its arms, there would be peace. If Israel laid down its arms, there would be a total holocaust against Israelis in the region. That is the moral difference right there. And if you can't see that moral difference, if you are stopping the Iron Dome from operating, then what you are calling for is the mass slaughter of Israelis. So I think that clarity, thank God that over 400 members of the House of Representatives can at least achieve that level of clarity. This, like Stuart says, this group of 5 or 6, they are absolutely anti-Semitic. They are absolutely, their moral, I would put that in quotes, their moral reasoning here is completely inverted and perverted. They cannot distinguish between who the good guys and the bad guys are in this region. Israel is fighting the war for civilization. As I said on the Daily Objective earlier, they are the front line in the war against these jihadist monsters. And that front line would be pushed back, but for Israel and its heroic activities, but for Israel, it would be in Europe and more in America today. So thank goodness for Israel. That's all I can say. And if you can't see the moral difference between Israel and its savage Islamist neighbors, then there is something wrong with your cognition. Let me suggest that if you are this side of psychotic, you are evading. And as I said in the last show, that is a moral question. These people are truly immoral, vile monsters, unable to see reality for what it is. It's the defense. This was an amendment that would stop America from selling and giving aid to Israel for its defensive systems, protecting civilians in the one comparatively civilized country in the entire region. Absolute madness and truly evil, this amendment. And thank goodness that the vast majority in both parties voted it down. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, to me as a European, even the amount of votes to me is kind of crazy because if you count it all together and consider the vacancies, it means only like 3 people didn't vote in like a 425 like large Congress. To me, that's pretty incredible. But I guess
Most
Republicans.
Americans are still pro-Israel. Don't be deceived by what you hear on the internet and what you see on university campuses. Yeah, it's those professors at the university campuses who are twisting the minds of the young. And there are podcasters out there twisting the minds of some of the young so that they do not understand properly what is going on and who the obvious good guys are and who the obvious bad guys are. Total moral inversion and perversion. It begins with cognitive inversion and perversion.
Yeah, and something I want to talk about. Well, first, I think we can read AOC's official sort of statement about this. She said, Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment does nothing to cut off offensive aid to Israel, nor end the flow of US munitions being used in Gaza. Of course, I voted against it. What it does do is cut off defensive Iron Dome capacities while allowing the actual bombs killing Palestinians to continue. I have long stated that I do not believe that adding to the death count of innocent victims to this war is a constructive to its end. That is a simple and clear difference of opinion that has long been established. I remain focused on cutting the flow of US munitions that are being used to perpetuate the genocide in Gaza. So again, this is not like a pro-Israeli or not even like center-left, like democratic way of talking. She's somebody who absolutely wants the state of Israel to be wiped out. Yet even she is considered too pro-Israel. She is considered too complicit. And I want to talk a little bit about that because this is something that I have no reason to say is actually what happened, but I think to a large extent this actually might have even decided that 2024 election. The fact that somebody like Biden and even Kamala Harris were viewed as being too pro-Israel, that simply the existence of Israel was viewed as you are being too pro-Israel. You can find some of the more either sort of like Muslim communities around America and the way they have voted. They voted overwhelmingly for the third candidate. They would rather lose election and have somebody like Trump become the president than have somebody who is closer to them but is considered still too complicit. And now even AOC is the same thing. She is being targeted because of even this cannot even be considered like a small like a support of Israel, right? Like if she didn't show up to Congress that day, nothing would have changed. Stuart, yeah, what do you make of this? Um, I don't know what to even call it. This uh like such an like dogmatic I don't know what to even call it, but basically such a party line basically enforcement that unless you agree with us that Israel should be wiped out, basically you are not good enough for us.
Well, I mean, I do think, as I said before, I think that the people criticizing her are actually the more philosophically consistent. If you believe the premise that Israel is this great evil, that they are the equivalent of the Nazi Germany, it's like, well, why would you want to fund even defensive measures for Nazi Germany? The point is to defeat them as quickly as possible. So, yeah, like if you had a defensive shield over Dresden to prevent the fire bombings, that would have been immoral. That would have been terrible. So if you buy their premise, they are actually the ones being consistent. AOC is actually the one who wants to have her cake and eat it. She's like, oh yeah, they're terrible, they're evil, but we still don't want to kill them all. It's like, well, no, if they're really that terrible and evil, then the morally consistent position is don't fund them at all. Don't fund defensive measures, wipe them out as quickly as possible. So it's the whole essential premise that is flawed.
Yeah, and just quickly, somebody says the Iron Dome, except on October 7th, turned off on that day. Yeah, Iron Dome is known for protecting Israel against the terrorists who walk across the border. That's what Iron Dome is designed for. No, Iron Dome was functioning that day. Iron Dome did something that day. There was 5,000 rockets on that day. Most of them were stopped by the Iron Dome again. So this is what like really is crazy that this amount of like propaganda that like everything has to be against Israel. America has to be controlled by the Jews. Israel has killed their own people on October 7th. There were no rapes, nothing bad happened to the Jewish people. The amount of basically things you have to accept, and sort of like Stuart, you said, right? It has to be that Israel is committing genocide, and from there on, everything else follows. So yeah, fundamentally, that is what has to be challenged. But how, I mean, James, question for you. How do you challenge something that has no basis? I mean, there is no, you have nothing. And even the people who say that Israel is committing a genocide, right? They are not using any evidence. They are not going to the ICJ. They are not going to the proper protocols. They've already decided on the truth and are going by it. People like Francesca Albanese, who is this big shot international lawyer, she's saying that Israel is committing genocide without sourcing anything. I mean, shouldn't you have some court? It's like me taking you to court and addressing you as the murderer while we are talking about if you actually did commit the murder or not.
Right. Exactly. Well, you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't come to by reason. There's another old saying that I think is really important in this context. You ask, how do you get this through to someone? Cognition, thinking is an act of choice. thinking is something that's where moral responsibility starts. Moral responsibility starts in how you use your own mind. And these people, there's plenty of facts, there's plenty of evidence. Rape, even the United Nations acknowledges that rape was systematically used by Hamas on October 7th. There's physical evidence that third-party international groups found, and that you can find for yourself. Hamas taped themselves doing these atrocities. Yes, rape, mutilation, torture, the killing of innocent children happened on October 7th. Those facts are easily available. But look, that's just one incident. That's one terrorist incident. There are the copious facts of the evil of jihadism are also quite available to everyone, as are the basic facts that would lead anyone to be able to do a rational moral comparison between Israel and all of its neighbors. The facts aren't really in dispute. The facts are available. If you do not recognize, if you can evade, you can use your mind to evade those facts. And of course, that's how they come up with this consistent ideology that Stuart was talking about. They are detached from reality. There is really no reasoning with them. There is that and think about anti-Semitism in general. Like any other form of collectivist bigotry, it is not based in reason. It's based in mysticism. And that's where it really comes from. And so if you see Christians and Muslims, I'm going to say that again, if you see Christians and Muslims, both with anti-Semitic attitudes, then be assured that's where, Ayn Rand in her brilliant essay, Racism, says that racism is the crudest, lowest form of collectivism. And collectivism is justified. It's a kind of mysticism. It ignores the reality of the existence of individuals, in effect, and puts this collective in front of that. And if you're thinking like a mystic collectivist, and Ayn Rand sure nailed this perfectly, then of course you didn't reason your way into that. And there's no way to reason out of it. You could show them the films that I saw from October 7th back in October of 2023 all day long. Horrifying to watch. And you could show that to them all day long, and it would not budge their position. It is we in the West, as Stuart points out, who have to become morally consistent. We have to check our premises all the way down to its philosophical roots, and have the backbone and the mental clarity to be as consistent as the consistency of the evil side is. That and only that can save civilization, frankly. And this is the battle for civilization going on in the world today.
I want to cover a little bit. Well, first, I wanted to comment on something. I think somebody asked if speaker is Protestant. Yes, James is a Protestant. He's protesting all religions. I think that's what it means. But
James is an atheist, and James has been an atheist since he was very young. Yeah, I do come from Christian background. Absolutely, I do. My ancestors were Christian, as far as I can tell. So blame me there. But since I was about 12 years old, I've been an atheist and opposed to all religion, because it is this irrationality that from which this kind of hateful collectivism stems.
Something I want to cover a little bit more is to go to Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments on proposing this amendment, and basically the whole red herring of this kind of rhetoric. So she said, here in America, we are 37 trillion in debt. My amendment will ensure an America First Department of Defense, and that is exactly what we need. That's a red herring. This would have cut about $500 million. That's absolutely nothing. She voted for Trump's big beautiful bill, which is going to add in the next 10 years about 3 to 4 trillion dollars to the debt. Again, the reason why America is in debt is it's not its foreign spending. It's not even its defense spending, which again is an actual role of the state. It is its bloated welfare state. It's many different sort of those types of things. If you want to solve it, then yeah, solve it. But trying to say that somehow this, and it's always, Israel, and a little bit ago before it was Ukraine, right? It's always the good countries. Whoever talked about stopping foreign aid to Egypt? Egypt is, I think, number three recipient of U.S. foreign aid. Like, this is what is actually happening. No, it's always countries like Israel. It's always countries like Ukraine. It's incredible how altruistic it is that it's always the countries that are actually in the benefit of the United States to support them that are actually being the targeted ones when it comes to sort of this idea of America first. Stuart, any thoughts on her comment?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of ambivalence only in that, I'm not sure that the US should be providing foreign aid to any country. But given the context, if any country on earth deserves our support in that way, then, Israel and Ukraine are the top two. And like you said, they're the ones that it's always under attack. Nobody's saying, hey, we should cut back our aid to Egypt or Sudan or wherever else we're doing. It's always those that, like you said, are actually, you could make a real good case that there are selfish reasons for the US to support them. So yeah, I think red herring is a good term. She has no concern about actual spending, or she never would have voted for the big bloated bill. So yeah, 500,000 or 500 billion, was it? Or half,
Million.
it was 500 million. So less than half a billion. Yeah, I mean, that's pocket change. That's nothing.
Yeah,
I would draw a moral distinction between just plain old foreign aid, children's theater in Guatemala or something, or even the food and the medicine that we send to countries. I would distinguish between foreign aid and military aid when it comes to countries who are fighting against dictatorship. National security is the proper role of the US government and any other government, the government of the United Kingdom or any other government, the government of Israel. Defending your people is the moral imperative of the governments. And for example, when we provided aid to Great Britain on back before America had actually even joined in the fight against Hitler, I think was an appropriate thing. Maybe objectivists might disagree with me, but I think that America had national security interests when it came to, say, an aggressive dictator like Hitler. And I think that America has national security interests when it comes to dictatorships like Iran and Russia. So I would distinguish between military aid, selling and giving weapons to a civilized country fighting evil, that America has an interest in. And that's not just foreign aid, like I say, children's theater in Guatemala or something, which we do fund,
Yeah, and so she also made a few more comments that I think we should cover. She said, it's coming to a point where it's so obvious all the time in everyone's language, the social media posts that they put out, the statements that they make. They have to proclaim Israel. They have to proclaim their faith and loyalty to Israel. And again, this is another sort of like red herring. Even when you go to things like these people always talk about AIPAC, even the who's the Thomas Massey always talks about them. And again, this is, well, first of all, it's a red herring. The fact is that it's not only that sort of again, AIPAC is not an Israeli organization. It's an American organization for Americans who want basically support candidates who proclaim their values, who actually support the things they do. This is an American thing. This is the fact that you want to have your representatives actually represent your ideas. If you have a problem with how much power the government has, I'm all for making sure the government has less favors to give, making sure governments has less control when it comes to what kind of pressure group will be benefited from. But again, that's a red herring because this only comes up when it comes to Israel. Nobody talks about the different kind of lobbies there are. Nobody talks about the farming lobby. Nobody talks about any other lobbies. It's always only when it comes to sort of support for Israel. Again, if there are Americans who want basically a special kind of relationship between America and Israel, they can vote for their representatives and they can spend money to help their campaigns. This is nothing sort of like undercurrent that's going on that is controlling American politics. Stuart, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. It's nobody cares that literally there's thousands of lobbying groups, and nobody accuses them of having this sinister ability to control the government. I mean, it's only Israel. And if it's not anti-Semitism, I'm not sure what it would be underlying it. As much as these people, very few people will openly admit that they're anti-Semitic, but the facts speak for themselves. The focus on Israel always as the source of bad things is, I don't know how to interpret it other than as anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and James, to go to you, you can comment on that. Or one more thing from Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's also said, it's becoming like, wait a minute, what about our own country? What about our own people? Again, how much, like, check out the big beautiful bill. How much of that is like something doing with like other countries? Most of the spending is on America. And I don't know what kind of person or sort of like politician Marjorie Taylor Greene is. I'm not sure if she is like sort of libertarian or something. But again,
No.
this idea that America is in debt because of foreign aid, or because of specifically because of its support for Israel, is, I mean, a joke. James?
It is a joke. I mean, we could eliminate the Federal Trade Commission or the Securities and Exchange Commission or the Federal Communications Commission tomorrow, or the Post Office tomorrow, without missing it. We have a Department of Agriculture, a Department of Labor, a Department of Transportation, a Department of Energy, a Department of Education, and we have huge, and the big ticket items are these huge entitlement programs that we keep changing the rules on, which are, just giant Ponzi schemes in any event. Those are the big ticket. Now, if she really cared about the budget, don't you think should be focused on, well, all of that other spending, which, when you put even pieces of it together, eclipses the spending that we give to Israel. She says Israel's got what? Public health care. Well, yeah, so does Great Britain. So do most European countries. Are we going to say that we shouldn't help be part of NATO because of Britain's national health service? That is insane. This woman is not, again, it starts with cognition, and it starts with cognitive responsibility and recognizing the facts of reality. For her to start with Israel, spending up money on Israel, when, as you both have pointed out correctly, this is peanuts compared to the annual budget of the United States. And when you spread it out over time, yeah, we're $37 trillion in debt. Well, but with $37 trillion in debt because of all this other spending, frankly. And the one thing the US government should be doing, the one true function of the United States federal government, is national security and the defense of American interests at home and abroad. No, we shouldn't engage in altruistic wars like we did in Afghanistan for 20 years, purely altruistic. Nation building, in quotes. We shouldn't engage in wars like the Vietnam War, which Ayn Rand herself very much opposed as being pure altruism. No, of course not. And especially putting boots on the ground and having American lives at stake when it comes to it. But the truth is, America is safer because of Israel's attack on Iran. America is safer. Western civilization is safer. America is better off when free countries, can defend themselves against their dictatorial neighbors. Dictatorship is the cause of all war. And I will recommend one more time Ayn Rand's brilliant essay, The Roots of War, which you can find in Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, where she properly identifies the cause of war in the modern world: dictatorship. And it is against aggressive dictators that America should be focused. We shouldn't recognize dictatorships at all, much less make deals with them, Mr. Trump. What we should do is arm ourselves to the teeth against the aggressive dictatorships and protect our allies, our semi-free allies. Is America perfect? No. Is Israel perfect? No. Is the United Kingdom perfect? No. But are they, compared to Iran and Russia and China, the good guys, the civilized ones, fighting back against dictatorship? Yeah, clearly. And if you can't see that, if you can't even distinguish between the good guys and the bad guys in this issue, then there is something deeply wrong with your thinking.
Uh, Somebody in the chat said money spent on Israel is required by international treaties, which are by law are supreme even over the Constitution. I don't think that's true. We have
No,
a constitutional lawyer here, but Constitution is the
no,
supreme law
no,
of the
no, no.
land.
Yeah, I have a lawyer who's done appellate work, and I can tell you that the United States if any treaty is inconsistent, like any law that passed by Congress, is inconsistent with the Constitution, it is invalid. It is the laws and the treaties that our elected policymakers create that can be invalidated because of their inconsistency with the U.S. Constitution. In fact, all of our federal leaders are to take an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States above everything else. So you see, we have portions in our Constitution. For example, the Bill of Rights begins with the glorious line, Congress shall make no law. That means, guess what, kids, that the Supreme Court can invalidate anything Congress does by law. And same holds true with treaties. If treaties are unconstitutional, out they go. The Constitution is the supreme law of the United States. Still, thank goodness.
Stuart, you seem to want to jump in a little bit earlier.
Well, I could be wrong. Maybe Daniel, you had a different interpretation. I took Marjorie Taylor Greene's comment about universal health care as, the U.S. could afford to have this for its citizens if we didn't, pay for other countries, which is an evil position, of course. But I that's what I took her meaning to be. Not that we shouldn't support Israel because they have universal health care, but that we could have it if we didn't spend all this money abroad.
You're probably right, Stuart. That's, I think, the better interpretation of what she's saying. But being a Republican, I'm going to give her the possible benefit of the doubt there. But no, it would be wrong to have universal health care in America. Not that we have it is government involvement in healthcare that causes the problems in healthcare in America as it is. So, but I think you're actually right. And thank you for the correction, Stuart, because I think that's the better interpretation of what she said.
Yeah, I mean, you always hear that. You also hear things like, we shouldn't help people from outside as long as they're like homeless people in America. And then you have like both Republican and Democrat states being like terrible when it comes to homelessness, again, because of their policy. So again, like, give me a break with this kind of the only reason why there are problems. Like, this is what they're saying. Like, the only reason there are problems in America is because of Israel. This is what the implication is. I think there was something else I want. Oh, I think Bonnie in the chat said, how responsible is Israel for this? The more we get from October 7th in time, the more the myth of Jews wanting to kill poor Gazans gains acceptance. The world reveals its ignorance. Israel waited too long. And that can be true on some level, but also it's blaming the victim. It's like going to the kid who is getting bullied and saying, well, you have to stand up for yourself. I mean, yeah, but also maybe that guy shouldn't bully that kid. Like that is that first thing. Yeah, Israel should absolutely wage the war properly, do whatever is necessary to end it as soon as possible. That is the big part of it. But also, to the extent it's trying to do is getting the rise of anti-Semitism has been going since October 7th, like from day one. Israel couldn't have been fast enough to really deal with it. Not to mention, even before there was a rise of anti-Semitism for a long time. So yeah, absolutely. Israel could wage this war more properly, but it wouldn't disappear. Anti-Semitism wouldn't be gone if even if Israel wages the war properly. This hatred of the Jewish people will not simply go away. Stuart, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's all very well and appropriate to criticize Israel. I think they have done a lot wrong, but it has to be in the context of they are the victims here. They are not the aggressors. Um, so yeah, it is to some extent victim blaming if you're not careful how you couch your criticism of Israel.
Yeah, I mean, James, similar to the video we watched earlier about basically this couple of guys who invited Benjamin Netanyahu on their podcast and had to later basically apologize for inviting a Jew on their podcast. That sort of uh, is similar in a way because yeah, I would like criticize, I have criticism for Netanyahu, but if I'm talking to a bunch of anti-Semites, I'm gonna be the biggest Netanyahu defender ever. We are not on the same level. When it comes to sort of like when it's a proper time to criticize or when it is proper, it's not when you are dealing with a bunch of anti-Semites. It's not when you're dealing with people who want to destroy the Israeli state. So that's why, on our shows, when it comes to criticism of Israel, I think there is and there should be, but there's so much irrational hatred of Israel that whenever I do criticize Israel, it almost seems like basically like uh, I don't know what the proper word for it is, but basically like inappropriate. It's like you see somebody murdering somebody and you see somebody jaywalking and you look, oh, look, that guy is jaywalking. It's yeah, both of these things can be true, but there is probably something that should be focused on much more.
Yes,
James, any yeah.
when Ayn Rand, when the Iranian Revolution happened and the Islamic Republic took over and the Ayatollahs, mullahs took over in Iran, Ayn Rand said we should have done something immediately when our embassy was taken and our diplomats were taken hostage for so long. We should have immediately done something. And she was absolutely right. She said we would be paying for this for decades. That did not change her moral calculus about who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. She knew that America, because of its inability to properly stand up immediately and strongly against evil, would be paying for it. She was not saying that Iran is better than the United States. She was saying quite the opposite. The good guys should be more on the ball in fighting evil, and they pay for it when they compromise and when they don't do that. Similar here. It is exactly analogous here. People will remember that on October, what was it? I was on this channel on October 9th or 10th, and I was hesitant to criticize Netanyahu. But before a week was over, I was already criticizing Netanyahu because, wait a minute, why isn't Gaza City already rubble? Now, one can criticize, Israel for not taking the appropriate steps at the time and being stronger in its own defense when there was more goodwill and perception that was pro-Israel. Of course, of course, of course. And will Israel be paying for this and for not standing up strong? Yes, just as Ayn Rand said, America would pay, and America has paid for decades to come because we did not stand up against those Islamic thugs who took our embassy and kidnapped our diplomats. And how much terrorism has America suffered since? Iran funds Hezbollah. And when little baby Hezbollah was just started in Lebanon in 1983, they started killing hundreds of Americans. And how many more hundreds of Americans and Israelis has Iran killed since then? Yeah, what you do is you stand up to evil with moral clarity, with cognitive clarity. Otherwise, you will be paying for it for decades. That's true. You can criticize Western leaders for doing that, but they're still the good guys. Your bully analogy was perfect, Daniel. Okay, maybe the kid should stand up stronger against the bully when he can. I mean, and when he can, by the way, he should stand up as strongly as he can. But who's the bully? Who's the aggressor, as Stewart says? That is the crucial moral fact here that needs to be recognized.
Yeah, and so something we can also go a little bit into is an article by Caitlin Johnstone. I'm not sure if we ever covered her specifically in the past. I've seen articles from her in the past. She is, I mean, as you would expect, a full-on anti-Semite, anti-Israel person, a journalist, or at least she calls herself journalist. I think she just does like op-eds and sort of like articles. But let's listen or let's read a little bit from her about her comments on AOC. So she said, the Iron Dome isn't for protecting civilians, it's for protecting the Israeli regime from deterrence. We see this in comfort the regime displays in waging constant military violence on its neighbors and knowing they can't retaliate. That's why Israel cut a ceasefire deal with Iran so fast. Iran's advanced missiles can be reliably stopped by the Iron Dome, so Iran was able to smash Israel and force it to cease its unprovoked aggressions. If Israel had a missile defense system which could casually swat those missiles out of the sky at a high rate of success, Israel would still be bombing Iran today and would continue doing so until Tehran looked like Gaza. Israel's war-horny population would have supported this because they'd have no skin in the game. So again, absolutely nothing when it comes to sort of moral clarity of what is an Iranian state, what is Israel, what is Hamas. It's simply the problem with Israel's Iron Dome is that other nations around it cannot kill enough Israeli civilians for Israel to stop defending itself. Again, Iran wants to wipe out Israel and America after. Hamas wants to wipe out Israel. Iron Dome, the Houthis want to wipe out. Hezbollah want to wipe out Israel. Iron Dome is one thing that, and even that one isn't perfect, as we've seen with the Iranian barrage. Iron Dome is one thing that allows Israeli civilians to survive because everybody around them wants to kill civilians. There wasn't a single military target that Iran hit during its recent barrage. That is not their goal. They want to kill civilians. That's why Israel cannot use human shields. Because to use human shields, the other side needs to want to not kill civilians. That's why Hamas can use human shields, because Israel doesn't want to target civilians. Israel cannot use them because Iran, Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah want to kill as many civilians as they can. Stuart, what do you again make of this idea that Iron Dome is basically an offensive capability because it allows Israel to attack nations around them without impunity, or whatever was the word she used?
Well, I mean, there's just a fundamental evasion of who is the aggressor here. You know, who, if you believe that Israel is the aggressor, then yeah, it all makes sense. It's just that there's no basis for that in reality. As you point out, you know, Israel's not the one chanting death to Iranians in the street. You know, they've never been an aggressor in the region. They have always been barely clinging to nationhood among, you know, all, as you named, half a dozen enemies that would literally wipe them off the map if they could. So it's just a fundamental evasion of the reality of the situation. I don't know how you achieve that level of evasion, but that's what she's attempting to do anyway.
James?
Yeah, to evade facts on that scale is rather astonishing. I can't imagine maintaining, your mental integrity and to evade on that scale, but that's exactly the scale on which they're evading. And that's what human free will permits these people to do. Twist facts insofar as they acknowledge facts and evade entire volumes of facts whenever it's convenient for them. I support Israel not because of some ancient claim of some tribe or some 3,000-year-old religious claims that people make. I support Israel because it is civilization. It is an island of civilization in a sea of savagery. It is the one country in the region that actually respects individual rights to some degree, whereas all the other countries, and then you look at transpose those critics like Nick Fuentes, who says that it's Jews and homosexuals who control America. Okay, it is anti-Semitism. That's what's twisting their minds against the defense of civilization, truly. And they end up defending the worst kind of medieval savage governments around Israel. And that's what they're doing. And yeah, look at the targets that Israel had in Iran when it did its magnificent to the extent it was able to, and America, didn't stop them. Look at what their targets were. They were military targets. They weren't trying to just indiscriminately slaughter Iranian civilians. No, they weren't. There's a point to be made. Maybe Iran could have a better system. Maybe there's a majority in Iran that wants something better for themselves. Maybe we shouldn't target those civilians so that we realize we're on their side. But, when you're at war, the deaths of the civilians within that country are the fault of the aggressor, like Iran. So even if Israel had hit civilians and killed civilians in Iran, it would be the aggressor, Iran's moral responsibility. It's not only the facts, it's the way we conceptualize and morally integrate this in our ethical thinking. And it takes a whole lot of work to evade on the scale that the enemies of Israel do. But irrationality and collectivism are at root what the problems are in terms of their ability to identify even who the good guys and the bad guys are in this region, as I say. And then you look at the targets that Iran has, as you point out. They were civilians. Look at Hamas's targets on October 7th. Innocent civilians. They used rape and torture and mutilation. They killed babies. They kidnapped old people as hostages. Those are simply facts, and anyone can verify it. And if you are so morally bigoted against the existence of Israel or the Jews as such, as so many people, I'm just disturbed as I read the headlines every day. I thought that we'd done something since the Holocaust to overcome anti-Semitism, but seeing the rise of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic crimes in the West, in places like Australia and Canada, and in my country where Jews are being killed, it is so disturbing to me. That kind of bigotry has not been wiped off the planet, and we need to intellectually do everything we can to do so. But American universities are simply feeding into it, and that's what's feeding their cognitive distortion. They truly are anti-Semitic, and sometimes they'll let it. As Stuart says, very rarely will they say it out loud. But people like Nick Fuentes will say it out loud sometimes, or Candace Owens will say it out loud sometimes. That is the reveal. That's what's really motivating them. Twisted, mysticism-based, collectivist bigotry.
And something else I wanted to bring up is so this. I'm trying to remember who originally said it. Well, let me just read the last part I want to read from the article by what's her name? By Caitlin Johnstone, and then we can comment. So she also said when it comes to sort of who she considers AOC to be, that's exactly what she was put there to do. Her real job is to say thus far and no further to the leftmost end of the political spectrum of the world's most powerful and destructive government. That's the Democratic Party job in general, and it's the job of the media-savvy progressive Democrats in particular. They are there to provide as little resistance as possible when the US politics are shoved toward more genocidal, militaristic, oligarchic, capitalist, imperialist abuses, and to provide as much inertia as possible to any movement in the opposite direction. And you hear that a lot. I think this is another anti-Semitic trope. This idea that basically people like AOC are just this kind of like controlled opposition, again controlled by Israel, that they are basically just put there to be viewed as sort of like this is the opposition to Israel, but it's not really. It's the same kind of thing you would hear. Oh, I remember. I think you mentioned Nick Fuentes, James. So it's the same kind of thing you would hear from Nick Fuentes. This person is again so far left that she views Democratic Party as basically that's the evil that is the problem. So yeah, I mean, to go to you, Stuart. Yeah, what do you what do you even do with this amount of like conspiracism, this amount of like straight up anti-Semitism on the level of like Jews are actually controlling the US government. Because if people actually start believing that, if you actually believe Israel or Jewish state or the Jewish people are controlling your government, and you cannot get them out in elections, that even people like AOC are basically complicit in this. I mean, what is the implication? What are you supposed to do then?
I mean, I wish I knew. As Jim said earlier, you can't reason with someone whose whole position wasn't reasoned into. They didn't come to their position via reason. So trying to reason with them, I don't know. It's just nutty to me that these people are having any kind. And I'm sure these people have always been out there, but that they're having influence, and that the increasing influence is truly frightening. I'd just like to say, as like Jim, I also became an atheist very, very young. I think I was 10, but I am from a Jewish background, so I think that I should be allowed then to be controlling the levers of government. And so far, nobody has sent me anything. I have not gotten any sort of notification. So this Jewish conspiracy, I feel left out.
Check your spam folder. There's a Zoom meeting every Friday. I'm of course not of Jewish background, or at least not recent. But as an honorary Jew that I got, I get to get the observer status at the Friday Zoom meetings, where we control all of Western and Eastern civilization and anything in between.
What about the weather? Are you on the board that controls the weather too?
Well, that you can only pick one. You are either the money
Oh,
controlling Jew or the weather controlling Jew. So
oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know when
Space
the other.
laser, and you're
I mean, you're joking, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually the person who is talking about the Jewish
I know.
space
You have
lasers.
to laugh about it though, because otherwise,
So
you
it
just
is
cry.
that absurd.
You can't believe these people are being elected to our government.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that absurd, and we must ridicule it and laugh at it as the absurdity that it truly is.
and sort of something I was going to, and to go to you, James, is because really when you start telling people, and that has been sort of like started happening in recent past, that basically the politics is corrupt to or is like controlled to the point that elections don't matter, that no matter what you do, is the people are not getting what they want. And it's specifically because of the Jewish people. I mean, if you know that, what else are you supposed to do? Then go and find a couple in Washington, D.C. Then go and try to find random Jewish people around the world at festivals, at football matches, at university campuses, and end them.
That's exactly it. What they're doing is they're encouraging, sanctioning, morally sanctioning, frankly, the rise in anti-Semitic crime and violence that we're seeing in the West today. No, they're not the perpetrator. I know people jump on me. No, they're not the perpetrators of those crimes, but they give it moral cover. They encourage it. I mean, if you truly think you're powerless in the face of this Jewish conspiracy that controls, the American government, then people that irrational, being that irrational, will do irrational things and burn someone alive in Colorado or kill people at a Jewish event in Washington, D.C. Um, it's frightening. It's terrifying. The governor of Pennsylvania happens to be Jewish, and so on Passover, they attacked the governor's mansion. We're seeing a disturbing rise in anti-Semitic violence. And rather than, you'd think that the sane, good people would say, okay, now we really have to be careful about interviewing any of those nuts, any of the Nick Fuentes nuts who think the Jews control everything. Now we should make the value judgment that we're going to make it really clear and tell people the facts so that they can so that there's some hope that the semi-rational people out there might not be cognitively confused, and we have a chance at a rational debate. No, quite the opposite. If we discussed in the Daily Objective earlier, if you have Netanyahu on, Boy, that's a crime against humanity just to interview the prime minister of Israel. And so what do you have to do? You have to have a bunch of anti-Israel people on to do your penance to do, for having Netanyahu on your interview show in the first place. That is a very disturbing state that the West is in. The inability to make cognitive distinctions and moral distinctions that are extremely important.
Well, with that, Stuart, any last thoughts from you about this, and where can people find you?
I have a Substack, stuart.margolis.substack.com, and I'm also on Facebook. Yeah, I mean, I don't know any closing words of wisdom. I do think we have to fight anti-Semitism wherever we see it, but it really does seem to be on the rise, and that is extremely alarming. That's not a good sign for the culture.
James, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
No, I really have no. I think we've said the relevant stuff. This channel, the Ayn Rand Center UK, is a somewhat unique voice. We focus on issues like this precisely because this is the battle for civilization going on in the world today. So if you like what you hear, it's voices like this that need to be promoted. Please consider becoming a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK. It is here that you will find me most frequently. And for paid subscribers, I do seminars, for example, on Sunday, where we cover lectures by objectivist philosophers and teachers, especially Leonard Peikoff in recent years. And you'll find here a voice that you won't find anywhere else. So please, and the conference coming up in October, if you can attend, please do. It will be unique even among objectivist conferences, but I think anyone, as we said earlier, who wants to see happy and successful people and to see how they became happy and successful people, come to the conference in October. It will be something special. So that's where you'll be able to find me in October. And it's here that you will normally be able to find me.
And with that, let me remind people that today's episode of the reality show has been sponsored by the Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy, a new book by Zoltan Sendes. You can check it out on Amazon. With that, and the link to that is in the chat and in the description, and it's also available in the Kindle, paperback, and hardback version, so whichever you like. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective and the reality show. Bye bye.
Be safe.
Bye.